Okay. Jane, has anyone explained to you, or are you aware after reading the candidate kit what's involved in the RPL process?
I am.
Okay, well, that's good. I'll just briefly tell you the purpose of having this conversation with you today. You've sent me your evidence, which I'm grateful for. Thank you very much. And there is a need for me to just fill in around little bits and pieces to clarify that everything you sent me is yours, and just fill in a few little gaps in relation to the knowledge evidence in the unit. So the questions, as you know, I'm going to leave in the same ballpark as I listed in the candidate kit, so there'll be no surprises, but they do vary slightly. But if you start going off track or whatever, I will try to lead you back with my questions to give you a sense of security. You're welcome. But Jane, don't worry. If we get to the end of the process and there's something missing, we can talk about that, and we can always, you can come back to me in a future date and supply that. You've got to remember that I can't anticipate how it's going to go today, so it may or may not be successful on the day. But if you are not happy with my decision, you can appeal. And did you get an opportunity to read the handout on our appeal process?
I did.
Okay, great. So
yes.
I will let someone else reassess it if you're not happy, and then our next step is my manager does. The next step is we send it to an assessor in at ASQA, and it's a totally independent process. So we've got that available to you. Jane, have you got any special needs or requirements that I need to be aware of before we start?
No.
Oh, great. Okay. So you're ready for the questions?
I am.
Okay. So what we're going to do, now we're going to change roles. I'm going to be Jane Lisa.
Yep.
Right? So you can all ask me a different one of the questions, or I think there's only about 5 of them in your assessor kit, but you're to ask me the questions, and when I give you the answers, you are to make sure that you're ticking off those little boxes or benchmarks underneath the questions. And if I don't answer it right, you try and lead me to the answer. If I still don't get it, just make a note down the bottom that, I may need to do something into the future to supply you with some evidence that's missing. But usually you can guide the person as much as possible to get the information you want. It's a good thing, but you're not always going to get everything. There's many cases where I turn around and say to a client, well, really, you don't have a lot of depth around question 3. And it might be, in the case of TAE, it's usually things like they don't understand the ACSF or the AQF, and I send them off to do a project on that. So don't panic. There's lots of things we can do. So let's get prepared now. So have you all got your assessor kit? You mightn't have the assessor kit there with you. Have you? Do you want me to send it so that you've got the questions?
Yeah, I've got the candidate guide open, and I'm on section 2 with the professional conversation, some sample questions that you said differ slightly, differ slightly, but I've got those 4 questions there.
But you don't have
the
sorry, that's my problem. I'll send you the kit straight away so that you know what questions are inside of it. And the trick is, as you ask me the questions, you try and make sure that you are ticking off the required evidence that's listed in those little benchmarks that we made underneath it. So I'll send one to you, Lisa.
Thank you.
And who else needs one? Sorry, I should have sent this today.
Yeah, me, please, Therese.
Natasha.
Michael.
And Michael. Alvin?
It should be okay. Isn't this the same we did in Springfield class?
It's the same one. Okay, so you're right.
I should be okay.
Are you still with us, Rochelle? I think Rochelle's gone, so I won't worry about her. Natasha? I've got you, and who else have I got that I've forgotten? Tegan? No, she's gone.
Hey, Therese, I'm just wondering, because I did I not do this last week with Nick. So do I need to get Nick's resume?
If you need another RPL, you can do two, and then that's
I don't-
two. You don't
Well,
want
no.
to?
No. So
No, you're right. If you don't need it, Mick needs it. But if you don't need it, it doesn't matter. We're just doing this for Mick so that he can pick up his evidence for his RPL.
right. So what I did last week for when I did the interview last week with Nick,
Mm-hmm.
that was task 4, and I did that. Am I then completed task 4?
As long as make sure you've got all your evidence. Like, have you got his candidate kit? Have you got his evidence that
He sent, yeah, so all he
Make
sent
sure
me,
you've got
okay, so
everything.
I'll need to get him to send me his resume or can I change what you've sent me to Nick's name and information?
Well, what you need to be able to do is just make sure you've got all the relevant stuff. That's the thing, and that's why we're doing it again tonight with Mick. And I sent the guide and the evidence beforehand so that we get
Yes.
more of a feel for. Because last week you did the competency conversation, but we didn't
Yes.
have the overall picture of what's gone on beforehand. And
Right, okay.
which is really important. And so we want to make sure we've got all the bits and pieces, because remember, when you hand this one in, you need the guide, the candidate kit, plus the assessor kit, plus a portfolio of the evidence that they supplied you.
Right,
And see,
so
So it's
so
up to-
I'll need to ask, so should I ask
Yes.
Nick or should I just, all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
you make sure you get a candidate kit filled out from Nick that has a
Yep.
completed third-party report,
Yep.
a list of the evidence, and he needs
Yep.
to supply the evidence so that you've
Yep.
got that. What I supplied you with today, he
Yep.
needs to give you,
He
but
needs
it's
to.
his. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Thank you.
the group that's there, have you got those assessor guides open?
Yeah.
Okay, so whoever wants to go first, question 1, I'll answer it, and you use your skill as the interviewer to draw the information that you require from me. If I don't know it, just make a note.
I'm sorry, did you send through the assessor guides?
Yes.
To which email?
Yours didn't come?
I'll check my TAFE one.
I'll have a look.
Yep, sorry, it's at my TAFE one. Yeah, all good, thank you. Yep, it's in my TAFE one, thanks.
Okay, good. All right, good. Okay, has someone got question 1 ready to go?
I do. No.
No, Alvin? Alvin, you've done
sorry.
it before.
I'm just confused about that.
Sorry, my mind is all over the place from work today.
All right, okay. No, that's
Um,
okay. Lisa, what's wrong? You said you're confused.
Oh no, because I observed Sarah do the RPL with Nick, and I took down all of the answers to the questions, and I was going to be using that, and I was just thinking about, I didn't realise to actually get his resume or
The other side, the other part. Yeah, that's okay.
yeah.
We,
Thought
we'll
we
just,
were pretending.
well, we can, as long as Sarah's able to get her hands on the other stuff. That's the only thing. So I want to do one with Michael where I supplied the stuff beforehand, so he got more of a feel of how it really goes. Because this can happen up to 2 weeks or a month beforehand, and you get all that stuff. You have a look at your unit. You know it's all mapped in the background, but sometimes from what you've been given, you're pretty sure once you ask the questions, you may or may not have everything that you want. So you've always got, you try to go really prepared in that you've already done a little bit of your own mapping in your own way. I usually get out the unit and actually do a quick read so I get a picture of competency, and if something stands out that I think, really, they haven't really hit the mark on that particular point. So when I'm questioning them, I'll ask them about it. Or sometimes I say to myself, they really need to give me a physical piece of evidence of that, and I'm not happy just with the question. So there's a lot of little bits and pieces that come into this, but if you start out and you get them to do the kit thoroughly, you're off to a good start. Usually you've got a lot of good stuff to get started with, and it makes your job easier down the track. This is your second chance, really. Once you get to talk to them, that's your chance to kind of fill in all the spaces in your mind and their mind, and or ask for more stuff if needed. Okay? So has someone got question 1 there available?
Yep, I have.
Okay, go, Michael.
Please explain the approach you took to plan and document a presentation delivery.
Well, first of all, I always ask my stakeholders what their expectations are, because I'm trying to satisfy. Usually I'm doing workplace-based training. So I'll ask the manager or the stakeholder what they want, how long they want it to go, what topics they've got in mind. I'll prepare it, and there's usually emails coming to and from me to them, and then when it's ready, set to go, I'll give them like a draft copy, usually of my PowerPoint, my handouts, the videos I'm going to use, and or any of the activities that I might have planned, so that they've got a picture of what I'm doing. Sometimes I have to do some research because I'm not really, there's some bits and pieces they want that I'm not across yet, so I'll do research. I'll do a lot of communication, email, phone, just making sure we're on the same page. And I also make sure I find a bit about the location, where I'm going, what's going to be there, what do I need to take with me, should I go prepared with my own, computer and leads and stuff like that, or is everything set up? So, it's a bit of a process, really, of making sure that you arrive on the day and everything's set to go. Is that what you wanted, Michael? Is there anything more you need to ask me?
I'm just trying to understand like your target audience. What's their needs or expectations?
Yeah, well, that's a really good point to ask me, because usually I get that information off the stakeholder. They will say things like, these are people who are already trainers, but they're just not very good at RPL, or they don't like doing it because they don't feel confident. So I just want you to deliver a session where you can give them an idea of what the process is like, and sort of appease some of their fears about it, so that you build up their confidence. So I'll usually, ask the stakeholders at the time we're doing that talking. I'll have a list of important things like location, time, audience, whether we're going to have food and snacks, because that always really helps if it's taking a little bit of time, or if it's around a lunchtime meeting sometimes. So all those little bits and pieces, rather like an event really in hospitality, to just be sure everything goes to plan.
Yep, thank you for that.
Okay, so question 2, someone else, please. Sarah. Oh, she's already done a turn. No.
I did it. Jeez.
Okay, all right, we'll give you.
I'll go again if it comes down to it.
I'll find it.
No, Sarah, don't worry. We'll ask Tasha. Tasha?
Yes.
You're off the hook there. Go, Tash.
Oh. Okay, hold on. Let me bring it up. I'm doing number 2, aren't I?
Yep.
Just give me a tick. So question number 2. When I get there. Yep. How did you brief staff about their roles and responsibilities for the delivery of the presentation?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, like I was saying to Michael in the question 1, I would send out emails to the appropriate people. Like if we're having food, if it's a venue that I'm not familiar with, I will have made contact with the appropriate people to make sure I'm able to access it beforehand, get into the building, check the equipment, and put the seating in place and all that type of stuff. So I would let them know, or if it's the people preparing food, I would give them an indication of the food requirements and things like that. So again, that's got to be done a fair time in advance because you don't want to have any last minute surprises, and things always prop up at the end anyway, so you don't want to be going there not prepared. You want to have most of those things tucked away. Anything else you want to ask me, Tash?
No, that's a good answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lisa?
I can ask a question. I think I'm focused a little bit better now.
Sorry,
What's up?
that's my mic was on.
No, that's all right. Okay, yes, go, Lise.
So what tools did you use to evaluate the effectiveness of your presentation, Therese?
It's one of our policies actually that after we've delivered a presentation, it's automatically sent out from our manager, our admin officers, and our manager reads it, sends it to everyone, gets the feedback, and then it's given to me after that to just review and particularly take note of any suggestions, because people sometimes have suggestions. They might want something to follow up on it, or they might, ask that I deliver something else. Like in a small session of usually I deliver in about an hour and a half, a lot of things come up that require more attention, so they might, make those suggestions, or they might say things like, oh, the coffee was cold, or whatever it is, I'm happy to hear it. But there's a formal evaluation feedback that goes out automatically at the end of every session, and it's reviewed by my manager and then passed on to me. So that informs my next session, so I can sort of think, oh, well, that went well, that didn't, and I can fix it up.
What about informal feedback? So from family members,
No, that's really good, because often during the sessions you get a lot of feedback from the people that you're presenting to, and I find that invaluable really, because sometimes too, depending on how comfortable they feel with you, they'll tell you things that you need to know that they're not going to necessarily say in the big group. So that's one of the advantages, always having tea and coffee and some snacks, because you go into a more relaxed environment and you just start chatting about other things and you build up that rapport. I think that's really important.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one, Alvin, we need you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Have you got questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah, good. Far away.
How did you utilize the feedback received from the delivery of the presentation?
Yeah, well, that's a good one, because it's really easy to just shelve feedback, like you get it and you think to yourself, oh yeah, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, and not do anything about it. But because I feel what I've got to do is important and people are relying on me for, I guess, an important component of their job role, I feel as if I've got to take it really seriously. So I'll often adjust the slides, or I might even change the video, or sometimes I change the whole topic because I've realised it's just gone completely, it just, it could have been delivered better. So yeah, I do take it seriously, and I do always play with it after I've received the feedback if there's things that stand out for immediate attention, and then discuss it with my manager, of course. But there's always going to be that need. The next time you're presenting, the stakeholders might want something different too, so it's always a moving feast really, and just staying open-minded, I think, is the major thing. And not being threatened by feedback, seeing it as a positive.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else, Elvin?
No, you've answered it pretty well and
Okay.
covered any follow-up questions I had.
Okay, thank you. How many more questions we got? Michael, any more?
Yeah, I've got one more for you.
All right.
Can you tell me about the organisation's policies and procedures that apply to the task of making a presentation?
Well, one of the big ones is there's certain things I have to be aware of, the code of conduct of the organisation, and privacy around some of their information, because sometimes I'm delivering stuff to other RTOs, and they don't necessarily, the RTO I'm in does not necessarily want me to make available to them all of their, I guess, inside gossip or templates or information. So it can be really hard, especially if you're using examples in your presentation that reflect on something you've done in that while working for that RTO. But yeah, it's something I have to be very careful of because
Are you saying like intellectual property?
yeah, intellectual property is a big one. Privacy, protecting people's identity or their reputation as well, I think is a big thing. And just general things like copyright, in the handouts that I give and or the materials that I use, ensuring that anything I use, a video or a YouTube, that I'm allowed to use it. They're my major ones. And then I guess it's a matter of, especially when you're delivering for a number of different organisations, is when you're doing that initial stakeholder part, just really get clear on some organisational stuff so you don't breach any important policies or procedures.
Just aside from that question, digress a little bit. Have you come across working with two different RTOs, both have different policies, but you might find conflicting with each other nonetheless?
Yeah, that does happen. And because of that, I guess, whoever you're delivering for at the time, I guess you're trying to keep them happy. But at the same time, if you're aware that someone in your audience, it may be an issue, I guess I'd maybe avoid some things. You know what I mean? Like, you don't try not to set up a situation that could cause conflict after a session.
Yeah.
Some people thrive on that sort of stuff, but I don't. And I find it doesn't really do well for your employment, so I tend to avoid it.
No.
Yeah. Is that all, Mick?
There is one more question if someone wants to take the reins, or I can say
I
it.
know, Tasha will. We're giving Sarah a rest because she's a burnt out frazzle. Okay, Tash?
All right, hold on. Let me get it back up. I've got like a gazillion things open.
No, that's all right. We can wait.
There. Now, what question are we doing for you?
6.
Number 6. So, describe the principles of communication you apply to successfully deliver a presentation.
Well, I think for me, you can't communicate unless your worlds of experience overlap in some way. And sometimes if you're presenting something that's really foreign to people, which sometimes RPL is, it can be really difficult because it's almost like, what gobbledygook are you talking about? So what I'll tend to try and do is, I guess, find some hook that I can hang the information on to start with, like especially if you start to appeal to people's, I guess, sense of their own experience. Like, if you've been a worker in a field for a long period of time, there's a very big possibility you could RPL a lot of different units in a qualification, and that appeals to a lot of people. So they start thinking, that gets them thinking about how it would benefit them or people they know, how it's a really positive thing and not something to be afraid of. And I guess the other thing, I try to influence people to I try to have a relationship with them in that I respect them and they respect me and we're in this together, because I think it's all about developing a relationship. And if you develop a relationship, they forgive you for lots of things and you forgive them. Like, there's always going to be little bits and pieces where, it might be a bit boring or you're not that interested in blah, blah, blah. But I'll use, you use the normal stuff like body language, whether they react to the questions, whether they look interested, and just mix it up. If you need to have a few tricks up your sleeve, we'll do this or we can do that. We can change it as we're going along if need be. So that's probably what I mainly do.
Sounds great.
Is that all?
That's it from me.
Okay, so now what you've got to do is make sure all that kit gets filled out, and I want you to tell me, I've given you evidence. Remember, I supplied you with a PowerPoint, a resume, a questionnaire, a lesson plan, a speaker engagement form, and now we've done a third party, and I've done the questions, but there's something very important missing. What do you think would really have added to the weight, or I should have given you alongside of all we've done, that would have really satisfied the very important elements within this presentation. So you might need to answer this question, you might need to go back to make a presentation and read the elements carefully and tell me what piece of evidence would have really enhanced this RPL, or you should be asking me. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I want you to problem solve this. There's something vital missing. What do you think it is? So go back to the unit, read the elements in the performance criteria and as well the performance evidence, and something will stand out where you'll think, well, far out, she might have answered the questions. I've got in a resume, she says she does these presentations, done them for a long time. Goody, that's good. There's some examples of PowerPoint. There's a lesson plan, a speaker engagement form, and there's some positive feedback, but there's still something that's absolutely vital missing.
Can I answer?
Yes?
A certificate or results of an assessment to show that you've actually done something.
That's a good thing. And you know what, Sarah? That's not it, but that's a good thing as well. So what I do as a group is write that down as something. I would mark me in, make sure when you mark this RPL, I'm not yet competent, because I'm not. And that you're going to ask me for what Sarah said. A certificate, what did you say, Sarah?
Oh, sorry, or like a qualification.
Yeah, a qualification.
Valid qualification.
Yeah, qualification would help, thank you. But there's still something else even more important missing. Go through your list of evidence. It's got to be valid. In other words, go across to your unit and look at all the stuff it says and think to yourself, well, I've got the answers to questions, but remember, I'm just telling you this stuff. I've given you lots of stuff, but there's something important missing. For example, and I'll give you a bit of a tip. What
A referee statement.
I was about to say.
A referee statement would help as well. Yes, by all means, ask for that.
I was about to say there's no other references in relation to your third party.
Yep. Okay, so put that in, references and or referee statements. What about the section, when you go to element 2, it says, well, element 1 says prepare the presentation. I think I kind of covered that. I think you'd be fine with that. But when it says deliver a presentation, it says explain bit's fine, I did that. Use presentation aids, monitor nonverbal and verbal, use persuasive communication techniques, provide opportunities for the participant to seek clarification, summarize key concepts. Tell me, when you did your presentations, what was I relying on? What did you have to do so that you could say that I could comfortably say you could do that? What
The assessor observation checklist from the direct observation.
Very good. There has to you need to either demonstrate I need to demonstrate a presentation for you in a simulated classroom, or send you a video like Michael you did with that you sent me, or it's not a strong enough body of evidence. So make a note, I'm not yet competent. Do not tick valid, because you need some more evidence. You're not happy, and remember, it's up to you. I agree with all the suggestions you've made. It's too light on the evidence, and I can tell you I'm the greatest person on the planet at doing presentations, but you need to satisfy the criteria. And the real strength in this particular unit would be, that's why we sit online. We make sure we observe you. 8 people see you do your deliveries because of the strength of doing it in front of people and or recording it in a video.
Just
So fill it all out, but don't tick valid, and don't tick sufficient either, because you haven't got enough stuff yet. Current, most of the stuff's current. I tried to make it current anyway, so you can tick current, and you can tick authentic because you know it's me. But the other 2, don't tick them and put not yet competent. Now, Michael, are you happier with that process now you've seen it?
Yeah, it very much cements what I've been doing at TAFE. I just wanted to confer exactly what you wanted in relation to the assessment component.
Yeah.
That's why that's why for task 3 I actually did 2 RPLs, because I'm getting a lot more exposure to it. That's why I really wanted to understand it, because a lot of guys are coming in and they've been in the field for 3 or 4 years and they want to get credited for half, if not 3/4 of the unit of competencies.
Well, Michael, what I'll say to all of you is make sure if you start with it is not a good RPL kit if it's not mapped already. So everything should be mapped already. So if you get your third party, you get your observation, you get your evidence, and you do and they are successful in the competency conversation, usually they're nearly there. But like you've identified tonight, sometimes the evidence is a bit light on, and when you go through your mapping and your unit again and look at your picture of competency, you say to yourself, really, I need a bit more depth here for me to feel happy with it. It's up to you as the expert in your industry and as the trainer to work out what you're going to what confident looks like and stick to it. Okay? So there's always going to be a little bit of a grey area, but try not to panic about that, because think about this. Lawyers all deal all their whole lives with grey areas, and they never know whether the baddie's got locked up or the right person gets locked up or not. You're in a way moving into an area that's a little bit different to, I guess, the security of your training and assessment pathway where you can control everything, but it flips it the other way, and that they give you everything they've got and you map it back. But a good kit, your quals, your industry experience, you're fine. Back yourself. Because they really appreciate it. They don't mind if you tell them go off and go and do this or do that. Or sometimes they even volunteer and they say, look, when I looked at the kit, what I needed, and when I looked at the list of questions, I don't really have that. Or I did it too many years ago. You know, they often work it out themselves, and you don't have to have difficult conversations. You usually get good clients. No one's going to put themselves through the grueling exercise of finding all that stuff, filling out the kit, sending it in, doing the conversation just to be told, no, you didn't succeed. So I find it really enjoyable work. I really love it, but so many people are scared of it, and I just think to me, it's easy. It's easy if you like people. See, I like people, so I'm a busybody. So I love chatting about what do you do, and blah blah. And you find out all about the world of work and what's going on out there, and who's who in the zoo. It's really fun. I like it anyway. And people are usually reasonable. They're happy to go off. Like, I'd be happy if you assessed me and said, look, Therese, thanks for that, but really, you didn't send in the remember we had a chat earlier about the evidence, but really wanted you to send me in a video or whatever. I might have just forgotten to do it as well. So you just remind me, okay, I'm not going to, okay, I really need a video. I needed some, have you got some quals where you've, that I can see where you've actually done something, you've earned a qualification or a unit of competency around this type of work? Sometimes people haven't. You sometimes have to make decisions like, well, I didn't have this, but this bit was so strong, I'm happy with that. That gets down to your professionality. That's where you back yourself, and the fact, I know my industry, I know this qual, and I feel happy with this. But sometimes you go, I know this industry, I know this qual, and they're not there yet. Okay, so not yet confident. Okay?
Yep.
And just work with them. All right, so that's really good. So fill it all out, and then that's done. Nick, the only other thing I need to be supplied with in that task is I need the record of results. I don't need, it's in the kit. I just need the candidate guide, the assessor guide,
portfolio of evidence.
Even the briefing, portfolio of evidence, definitely. And I've sent you all what the stuff is.
Yeah.
It says here assessment briefing checklist. But I did that. You know how I did that with Lisa before before I started. So
Yeah.
there's a plate. I'm pretty sure there's a plate. There should be inside that kit is where you tick off that I did this with the candidate. I did that. There's a whole list of questions where that's your briefing. So I don't need that either. Your record, everything's in there. So except for the portfolio of evidence, I'm fine. That should be fine. So I think that's an easy. Oh,
Yeah,
your
so
mapping.
it looks like there's 1, 2, 3. If you said the brief checklist, 4 items essentially to be sent through. Plus,
Yeah. Okay, no, that's good. All right. Any other questions, or do you think you're right with that?
Just before we go any further, I recorded that. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
If anyone needs it, let me know. I could put it on my channel for a couple of weeks, and then if you need to reflect on it, I'll just send you a link. But it's at your say so, Therese.
Yeah. No, that'll be really good. That's fine to do that. And I think probably that should just about be it with the RPLs, wouldn't it? Have you all got enough for that task? What is it? Task 4.
Yeah, I've got everything I need for task 4, but the RPL.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else not got something they need? Elvin?
I think I'm okay now. I've got 3 deliveries from Lisa and 2 RPLs from Bob and Tara.
Yeah, but don't forget, what do you mean deliveries from Lisa? That's worrying me. Because what you need there...
No, TAE, DL.
Yeah, but don't forget, Alvin, I keep telling you all about this and you all get it wrong. If you do the unit TAE DEL 301 and you do 3 observations and the exam, you know how you got to mark her exam?
Yeah,
and
for that.
Okay. And you're
I've
going
got the exam.
But that's only
I've
one.
got manual. That's only one.
Yes. I've been telling everybody this. It's that stupid unit, TAE DEL 301. When you teach that unit, you have to observe 3 sessions because it's written in the assessment conditions. And all the students get really confused because they imagine.
Yeah.
I know.
I did the written assessment, so we've marked and graded the other cohort's written assessment. We did AT2B checklist, which is the manual handling. I did AT3B, which is the 40-minute session of own choice. I did AT4B, which is your one-on-ones. I don't know about the 2x40s. I haven't seen any checklists or marking.
You don't need
I didn't think so. So I've got those things. I've got my feedback as an overall for the unit.
But that's one person.
No, I've got it for 4 people.
Oh yeah, okay, but Alvin, if you do 4 people, if every person you do in TAE, this is why TAE DEL is a pain in the ass.
Amen.
Every person who you want to score competent has to have shown you 3 observations plus pass the exam. Every one of them. So what I'd recommend you do, Alvin, if you've only got one person that you've seen the 3 presentations, like Lisa, I believe you have, that's fine. But at the end of that process, you've only assessed Lisa in TAE DEL 301. That's only one person. Then you've got the 2 RPLs, so that's 3. You need 2 more.
Okay. What if I split Lisa's deliveries into individual delivery?
You can't do that. The reason is because what she delivered was sessions, not units, and you are grading a whole unit. So just do the Lisa one.
So realistically, we should have done delivery first before we did task 4. If we'd done all of delivery first, we could have assessed everyone. So the written assessment, the other observations, we could have assessed all that before we actually tackled task 4.
What? I don't understand that, Mick. Tell me again.
TAE DEL 301 is what we're doing for delivery, right? So so we do a written assessment, which is task 1. The second task is manual handling. That's an observable thing. So we could actually observe each other and give constructive
Yeah.
feedback, a checklist, and assess competence, which is the task required for
Yeah,
18.4. Again, for 3, so maybe we should be using delivery as the mechanism for task 4 for assessment.
That's right. And I think but what happened was, remember, Mick, some people saw 2 and then that person left, so they never saw the third one. And we had a lot of, I think because of the way we structured the groups of people coming and going, we couldn't get that. But you're right. If we'd all started at the same time, we could have really corralled it so
even back when we started, guys, and Jan was dragging us into the other deliveries, we should have been identifying at that point in time, we are currently assessing competence. This needs to be taken into consideration for task 4 for assessment. Please take note. Here is your checklist. Let's go through it. And we should have been compiling, because we have had other members from other cohorts come and go, but we might have been able to
get through